Okay, so we're still working through the massing on this student project, and we started by looking at the practice of using a generic model as a custom component to make these arches. And we know they've got a lot of refinement that needs to happen, and I know that I want to simplify the design a bit too. Because anytime I start moving from sort of an analog version of a model of an architectural design in this model to something virtual, I want to take that time to improve the design and push things forward. So I know, this arch might cave way to something new. I know this roof form is really important, but this is where we're at right now. And we want to keep sort of the feel of it. So the next thing that's important for me to mass out is the roof. And then the stage after that might be beginning to let this item conform a little bit more to the roof structure. Because if you notice, let me pull this back in, the actual structure underneath these elements is something that's kind of missing. There's this arch, but holding up this roof right here is some type of mystery stuff. Because I know this glass isn't structural, and I know that the structure here is not running in the same plane with this. So there's some work that I need to do to sort of start to resolve that and sort of finalize the design. So we'll get there, but before all that, what I want to be able to do is create that roof form over the top of this structure. So to do that, with this we used the process of going component, and then we did model in place, and we were using the generic model just to keep things simple. But that only opens up a limited tool set. This time we're actually going to use the massing tool set, which allows a little bit more freedom with the modeling and the opportunity to do things with some lofting tools, some things that don't show up unless we activate this massing tool set. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. We'll just accept mass 1 as the name. So again, right off the bat, you'll notice that this looks a little bit different. I don't have different modes. There's not an extrude and blend and so on, sweep and so on. I just have a real basic line set. If you've done a massing family, you'll notice this is sort of the same set and the same workflow. So what I'm going to do is let's go to level 1. And I do want to set up a couple of parameters for me. So I'm just going to draw some base lines here. I'm going to draw this line out, ideally right about perpendicular with that column. It's going to go out 8 feet to define my roof overhang. I want it to overhang this direction about 4 feet. I'm going to come back this direction 8 feet, just because I want to know what I'm clicking on, or about where I'm clicking at. So again, I'm going to take this piece. It's going to come out 8 feet. And when you're doing freeform modeling, it's sometimes you just want just complete freedom. I struggle with complete freedom. I kind of want some constraints, so that's why I'm doing these really quickly. I actually want to know I'm about 4 feet this direction, about 10 feet this direction. And those are numbers that help my brain work. So you just have to indulge me for a few more seconds here while I wrap this piece up. So again, those are all elements that I'm probably going to delete at some point, but those give me a guideline now, so where I can come, and I'm going to use this 3D spline tool, and I'm going to click 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 points right along this axis. And then I can never help myself but to kind of go back and tweak the points just a little bit, kind of get that curve close to what I'm wanting. I'm going to come back here and do the exact same thing. I'm going to use 5 points again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the reason I'm using 5 points is because I like having a center point. I could very easily use 7 or something else, but having that center point is going to give me a little bit of control. And 5 just seems like a good number. So I'm going to do one more set of points right here across the middle. And again, you can kind of see the inference snap, so I know that that's close. And I saw the same thing here with this line. I know that those are close. So I'm going to go ahead and look at those in a 3D view. And you can see actually one of them is kind of snapped up in an odd way right there. That's okay. I'll fix it later. Now, what I want to do is I want to move these guys up so that they're happening above the trusses. So I can stay in my 3D view typically and do this pretty easily. So I'm going to start with this middle guy. I'm going to move to a front elevation view on my view cube. That's going to lock me moving on the z-axis. So I'm going to move this centerpiece up 18 feet. So I have that happening there. Now I'm going to do the same thing with this line. Move it up 16 feet. And same thing with this piece right here. Okay, so I want to fix this line, so I'm going to select that and pull it down, because I'm really going to start getting a little bit more into the freeform modeling. Now, one of the things that you might notice from time to time is sometimes that's going to be located, or that a node to edit is going to be associated with something that's not going to let you sort of be able to move that in the X, Y, and Z direction. Come back to this host drop down when you have the node selected and make sure it's either set to not associated or it's set to level 1, level 2, and that's going to give you the freedom to remove the constraints to be able to move that in the X, Y, Z direction. So I'm going to give each one of these lines a little bit of an arch, so I'm going to pull that up. This and that. So I'm beginning to create a little bit of an arch piece right here. And what I'm thinking about doing, the process that I'm going through right now, is I'm looking at these 3 lines as something that I'm going to loft together. If you don't know what a loft is, hang on for just a second, and I'm not going to try and give you a definition as much as just show you exactly what the loft tool does, or what the concept of lofting is. Because there's not really a loft tool, it's called create. So I've got those 3 lines. You can start to see how they're coming together. I'm going to click each spline and say create form. And that is beginning to build that roof shape. So if I select this, let's say I want to edit this further before I'm completely happy with it. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to go to X-ray, and X-ray is going to give me the underlying geometry so I can continue to edit and tweak. So by having everything selected, I can move the roof. But I just want to say, let's edit this node a little bit. I just want to sort of move that one up. Maybe these pieces down a bit. And create sort of a little bit of a piece. It's too extreme. Pull that down just a little bit more. And perhaps I want to take these edges and drop them down just a little bit more as well. Sort of like that. So, I can continue to edit that as much as I want to using that X-ray tool. So let's go back to the overall, turn off X-ray. And what I'm ready to do is go ahead and turn this into a roof inside of Revit, an actual roof that I can start to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and say Finish Mass. I'm going to go to my Architecture tab, Roof by Face. Notice I have a generic 6-inch roof. So I'm just going to go ahead and select that and say Create Roof. And now you're going to notice this weird pattern. That's because I have coplanar geometry. That weird pattern is created by the fact that I have a massing element and a roof element in the exact same place. And so the best I can describe it is the program's kind of trying to figure out which one to show at which time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the tab key. Right now that was selecting the roof. If I tab once, that should give me my mass. I'm just going to hide that element to get rid of that sort of weird tessellation. So now at this point, let's say I wanted to go back and make some additional changes to that mass to change the shape of the roof. I'm going to go ahead and unhide or show hidden elements, and I'm going to select my massing object, and we'll click Edit in Place. A lot of additional data. That's kind of a new thing for me. Let's try that one more time. I've never seen that happen before. I think what maybe I should do here is let's unhide this first. Unhide element. Just like that. And let's edit in place. And that should get me down to my massing model. So if I come back and say X-ray, if I make a change to this, let's say I want this arch in the front to be more prominent. I begin to pull that and this piece up. If you'll notice first, this roof is not following that. Okay? So if I say finish mass, it is still not following that. For right now, I'm going to guess that at some point in time, those things will be linked. Or perhaps I'm missing something. If I am, post me. Let me know. But again, the process of going back and saying, yeah, do that again really quick is pretty easy. Okay, so let's go do one more thing. I'm going to select my massing surface. I'm going to say edit in place. I'm going to turn off X-ray mode again. It's just a little bit easier to work with. And I'm going to move this guy down just a little bit. About there. And what I want to do is figure out about how far that's moving down. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm going to draw a line. And I'm going to set a reference plane for the line here really quick. That's going to be my reference plane. I'm just going to draw a line down about 2 feet. So freeform modeling isn't quite yet an exact science in Revit. But it does work pretty well. It definitely lets you sketch your ideas out. So I'm going to say finish mass. I'm going to make a second roof right here. So I mean, this is pretty cool what I have right now. But what I want to do with this second roof is actually use the top roof and the bottom roof to drive some additional shapes. So I'm going to say roof by face. I'm going to pick this underneath guy. Do that. And again, I'm going to hide that massing piece. Okay, so I have 2 roofs right here. They're both sort of a curvilinear shape. And in level 1, I'm going to create a new wall type. And this is, note, this is a lie. I'm completely lying, probably using the program like I shouldn't. But if I want to get some things that look like beams in quickly, this is a method that we've come up with that works pretty well. So I'm going to say wall, and I'm going to select a generic wall type. And let's just start with the generic 6-inch wall type. And I'm going to say edit type, duplicate, and I'm just going to call it structure. Wall 4-inch beam. And I'm trying to be descript just so that I can select it quickly in a later date. Structure, I'm going to click edit, 4 inches thick. So essentially I'm making a beam, if you start thinking about this, out of a wall that's going to be 4 inches deep and about 2 feet tall. But it's going to follow those curves. So I'm going to come across, I want to draw it in as the center line, and for right now we're just going to start by going center of the arched column to center of the arched column. I know I'll be able to edit both of those later. I'm going to do the exact same thing over here. Center of this to that. So if I go to my 3D view now, I can see where those 2 walls are cutting through. I'm going to select one of my walls and say attach the top. With that wall still selected, I'm going to say attach base, and I'm going to select that lower roof, essentially the copy of that roof that I made. I'm going to do the same thing with this guy. Attach top, attach base, the bottom roof. Now, unfortunately, I can't delete that roof, but I can hide it. And I start seeing those beams running across. So again, I can do the same thing. I can start pulling those pieces out a little bit more. Let's just do that really quick. Let's look at my top view as a wireframe. And I can actually pull that right to the edge. I can pull this one right to the edge. And what you see is this beam that's going to follow exactly where my roof is. Which again, I'm kind of lying because it's not truly a beam, but you're starting to see how that's coming together. And then I can use that piece as a guide as I start to refine what this structure is doing. Because, perhaps this arch is too complex. There's already a lot of geometry coming together. So I might be able to build or rebuild this custom component using that wall as a guide, so that this is starting to match and work with that roof form a little bit more. So that's taking us through the basics of getting those custom components modeled and put together, both in terms of using a generic and in terms of using the mass modeling tools.